Greetings, residents. Supervisor Dick Thurston speaking today with our front porch talks from your front porch at Carnwath Farms and the Administration Building. Today I have a guest to discuss Carnwath and also our sports museum. We'll get into that in a few minutes, but this is Bill Ponte, and we'll be going down to the sports museum after we're done with the interview. It's a beautiful day out here, another beautiful fall day after a fair amount of rain that actually is hopefully going to bring some more color to the trees, and we hope that you can get out during the weeks ahead and watch the change in our scenery out here. Before I start talking with Bill, I just want to remind everyone that our Community Day, which we call Carnival, is going to be on this coming weekend, Columbus Day weekend, October 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th. We have a lot of information out on the town website, on Facebook, on our recreation homepage and recreation Facebook page. It lists all of the various events, times, ticket prices. And just as a quick overview, Friday is when we kick it off, Friday evening. That's our first day, part day. The evening begins with the carnival rides. We'll have a big bonfire, such as we did last year. That is sponsored by Cosm here in the town, just up the street from Carnwath. And then Saturday, the key feature will be our parade, which the lineup starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon over on Myers Corner Road, with the step off at 2 o'clock. On Sunday, we will have our fireworks display Sunday night. And then on Monday, our last day, which is somewhat of an abbreviated day, that will be wristband day, which means cheaper rides prices. We have a full lineup, a very full lineup of vendors and other vendors, food vendors, and also crafts, and also other booths of community interest. So please come on out and enjoy the nice fall weather. It looks like we should have some good weather for Carnival this year. The location, as a reminder, Slaughterhouse Farms. That's Brexel Slaughterhouse. It's a white building and grounds that are located on the northwest corner of Myers Corner and All Angels Hill Road. That's cat-a-corner from the New Hackensack Firehouse. It's also where our big war memorial site is located. So you can't miss it, because you'll be seeing all the carnival rides. But here I want to turn our attention to the Sports Museum of Dutchess County, which is a very important feature of our Carnwath Farms, but also we're very proud to have it located in the town of Wappinger here at Carnwath. And with me, Bill Ponte will talk about it. His lovely wife is down at the Sports Museum itself, and we'll get a chance to meet her shortly. But why don't you just briefly describe, give a little background on yourself, right? And then we'll talk about the Sports Museum.
Okay, I'm Bill Ponte. I've been with the Sports Museum for approximately 25 years. But before I start about talking, I want to tell you that we're up at the Administration Building now. And we were here a little bit early this morning, and we took a ride through Carnwath. And you have such a beautiful place here. I mean, there's so many things that can be done here. There's picnic tables up there. There's paths to ride bikes, to walk your dogs. It's a tremendous place to have. And, my sister is here with us. She's from Arizona. And she says, this is such an, underutilized place. It's so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful places in Dutchess County. And, a lot of people don't even really know about it.
That's right.
And it's really, really something that's hidden.
Right.
And, there's so much things that can be done here. So I know Dick and his, his people are trying to get things going, trying to have different events and things. And, the Sports Museum is part of that. We just received a grant from the county, and we've made a room for children, and the idea for that is to have computers there, and we're going to teach the children about the history of sports in
Right.
Dutchess County. And we're open weekends, but I had 3 people call me this week, and I was down here and I gave tours to
Good.
these groups.
Yeah.
And the people were so happy with the museum, and it was it's all plus. I can't think of a bad thing about it.
No, and let's just follow up briefly on the grant and the program that you have. You set aside a room, but it's the program is named now after but for Ralph Holt, who is very dear to us and who just very recently passed away. His viewing funeral was this past weekend. And Ralph was an institution in himself here for sports. We also lost 2 years ago in 2020, Joe Ennisser, who also did. Why don't you just briefly share a little bit about Joe and Ralph, and then we'll get into the Sports Museum more.
Both Joe and Ralph were members of our board at the Sports Museum. When we got this grant and we were putting together a room, we had to come up with a name for the room. And they looked at me, why don't you come up with a name? And I thought of Ralph Holt, because Ralph, for so many years, worked for the town. He was in recreation. He taught Little League. He opened up girls softball. He was always a gentleman. And he was, he had a tremendous voice with a little bit of a Boston accent. And he was just a joy to be around. Joe Ennisser had a job at IBM. He was a high-level manager. And Joe never showed it. Joe was always a common person, always saying hello to everybody. And, between the two of these guys, I learned an awful lot about everything, about how to do the sports and, everything else.
Right.
They were both joys to be around, and both of them will be very well missed.
And they are inductees into it. Why don't you, just talk a little bit about how do people and teams and so forth get to be, recognized by the Sports Museum?
In the early 1970s, a group of men got together and they said, we should have a museum that is about all sports rather than just a football or baseball. And what the idea behind the Sports Museum was to get the people that were behind the scenes in sports, the sponsors, the unpaid coaches, the unpaid the umpires, things like that. These were the people that didn't want their name to be out there, but we believed that they had the right to do that because they're the ones that made the sports. Right. They're the ones that made the athletes. And for many, many years, we did just that. We had people that were sponsors and coaches and things like that. But what happened was we got to a point where a lot of the people that we wanted didn't want to be in because their dream was to help the kids and promote the sports. So the last couple of years, we got a little bit more athletics and stuff like that. But I would say probably 220 people that were inducted they were volunteers. Mm-hmm. I used to call this the who's who of sports volunteers in Dutchess County, because that's what it is. To be put into our Hall of Fame, we open up where we have nominations from anybody that wants to write them in. We get the nominations, we have a board meeting, we go over the nominations, and then we vote on the people. And since the COVID, the last couple of years, we've had to suspend having that because people couldn't get together. We couldn't have restaurants. We couldn't do this. People were afraid to come together, and they were rightfully so. That was what happened. Hopefully, we'll continue it next year. We'll get things a little bit back to normal. So that's where we are with that, and that's, a lot of those people, it actually what happens is it brings tears to their eyes because what they did was for kids.
Right.
And they didn't, there was nothing for them to gain except, the feeling in their heart that they did a good thing.
Right.
So.
Right.
Dick, if you want to...
So I think, as all of our listeners out there have a lot of involvement in sports in our community, especially as we try to improve it. keep in mind, Bill just mentioned that they'll be opening up in the future for more nominations, and it's not just your star athletes, it's our star residents and community throughout Dutchess County that have made sometimes unknown contributions to the effort. But we also accept athletes, who had been born, raised, lived, had a contact one way or the other with the sports team. Why don't you mention just a couple that are local? Like one of the names that comes to me is Bettina.
Right.
And so.
Mildio Bettina.
Yeah.
Well, the name of our museum is the Sports of Dutchess County. We're called the Legends of Dutchess County.
Right.
The people that you'll see when you come into the museum, right on the wall as soon as you come in, are people that were born in Dutchess County, that lived locally, that made it to the top of their sport. Olympics, baseball,
right.
football, basketball. These were the people that we had. Mildio Bettina, that Dick mentioned, was born and raised in Beacon, New York. And he became the light heavyweight champion of the world, okay? He was, I believe he's the only world champion we've ever had here.
Oh, okay.
And he was a tremendous leader. Another person we had was Monty Stickles. He was a football
right.
player. This guy set all kinds of records at Poughkeepsie High School, went on to be an All-American at the University of Notre Dame, played in the NFL for the 49ers and for New Orleans, became an All-Pro. And, you put that he went to such a great college and was an All-American and played and made the All-Star in the NFL. That's tremendous. We have a young man, Tyler Adams.
Yeah,
He's a soccer player. He's 23 years old. He just signed a contract to play in Germany, a 3-year contract for $24 million. And he went right to high school here. He, is a resident. His mother has been at the museum several times. He would love to come here, but you know how things are.
Right.
Once you sign those contracts, you have agents, you have lawyers, and he's not able to do that. But he's another one right here, right from Wappinger. You can't ask for better people than these
That's
three.
right.
So
in the museum, you'll see these and many other people, but you also have some inanimate contributions, such as an ice boat.
Okay. We had a man for many years that was our member, Moose Karn. He owned the Arlington Sporting Goods store in Poughkeepsie, and he dedicated to us an ice boat that was, on the Hudson River. There's an ice boat. It's a wooden boat, and on the Hudson River, it went up to 95 miles an hour.
Wow.
And that's one of the, just about all the things that when I do tours of the museum, and they see the pictures of these athletes and this, they stop at this ice boat, and they're amazed by it.
Yeah,
They just said this thing actually used to go on the Hudson River. And, it's really something to see. Even, we get older people and then even little kids.
Yeah.
I did a tour a while back for Girl Scouts, and this real little girl, she's probably about 7 years old. And she looked at me and she says, "Well, you're not going to tie me up and put me on that boat, are you?" I says, "No, we're not going to do that." But, it is something.
And there used to be competitions in the past when the river froze over, solid.
Sure, certainly, sure.
And so this is part of the sporting history that many people don't know about anymore. In fact, we have an older building here at Carnwath. It used to be an ice house.
Yes.
Yeah, so those are the days when people got their ice, for their refrigerators, from cutting it in the river. So. Well,
like I said before, what we're trying to do here, and which we do, is we make this local. We make it so that the people of Wappinger, the people in this area, have something to be proud of. These are the people that, are our neighbors, are our friends, our relatives, and these are the people that made it. You can have pictures of, your Babe Ruth and stuff like that. We have a couple like that. But these are people that the world knows.
Yep.
These are, in our museum, they're the people that the local people know. It's a home type feeling. Yeah. I'll tell a real quick story, if you don't mind.
Oh, welcome it.
Okay. The museum, there's 2 floors above us. And maybe 7 years ago, in the winter, the pipes broke up there, the water pipes.
Okay.
and the water came down.
Ooh.
So I got a phone call, and they said, your artifacts are not ruined, but the roof the ceiling needs to be fixed, the walls, the floors. The ceiling's going to cost this much. The walls are going to cost this much. The floor is going to cost this much. And I'm very close to saying, hey, the hell with it, forget it. Until I remember a day that I did a tour, and there was this older man, and he was with a young boy. And I realized that it's the grandfather and his grandson. And they're going through the museum, and they go into this golf room. And there's a picture of this older man in 1953 when he won the City of Poughkeepsie Golf Championship. And I see the young boy grab his pant leg, the grandfather, and say, hey, Pop, is that what you look like when you were a young man? And I look at the grandfather and you see tears coming down his eyes. And he hugs his grandson. And I think, well, what is the price on that?
Right, exactly.
There is no price on that. You have, it's not who's scoring the most points. It's love between the two of them.
Right.
And I see so many of these things where older people come in and see pictures of their sons and daughters and, husbands and, and it really brings back memories to them. And it's really, really good to see.
So I view that as really the major contribution that the museum makes. Artifacts and so forth can be there, but it's those memories, it's the humanity of people here in Dutchess County, which is really a tremendous thing for those that have only moved here recently. But the Sports Museum is where you can come and, actually in Wappinger, the only place you can get the touch and feel for a lot of that humanity and the people that have made this community what it is today, a great community. And so I commend you. And in that vein, you're always looking for volunteers, right, to help you do even more.
We're looking for volunteers. What I would love to have done, right now we're just open Saturdays and Sundays from 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock. And the reason being that we don't have the people to staff it.
Right.
For an example, we're going to have a booth at the Community Day.
Right.
Okay? Which means we're going to have to close the museum because we don't have the people to staff it. And when I used to use the word, if you can work at the museum. Well, people, when I say the word work, they think they're going to have to paint or dig or climb. But work means sitting like Dick and I are here until you hear the bell that somebody's at the door, and then you say, welcome to the Sports Museum, and you just show them where, and basically around the museum, it's, you don't need a guide. Everything can, it tells the story itself. So, and I tell people, and a lot of people, I've been at things I've talked to, I've been at luncheons, I've talked to, and people come to me, oh great, how can I, and I says, well, we need you maybe like 6 hours, maybe 6 hours a year. Oh, that's a little too much time to spend.
Right.
And I look at them like, I'm not asking you for a kidney, folks.
Right.
I'm asking you to, to do this for your community.
Right.
And they.
So anybody out there that's watching this, young and old, like young and young at heart, I should say,
female. And again, you do not have to be an expert on sports.
No, that's right.
You have to be, a people person, somebody that can, tell people what this is about.
Right.
I'll give you my phone number. The best way to do that is to call me. It's 473-0903. Okay. I should be there all the time. If I'm not there, put it on the answering machine, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah.
It's there's no money involved. There's, the museum. Another thing, the museum is free to come in.
Yep.
There's no charge.
No charge.
To come in.
That's great.
We do have a jar for donations if people feel like it, but there's no fee to go in.
So you have plans to grow that. Part of it, well, I'd say a lot of it is contingent on the town doing some additional work, to the building. This is the Reese Cultural Center is what we call it.
Yes.
It's right behind what is the mansion. As you come up the road to Carnwath, there'll be a parking lot on your right, and there's also a smaller one on the left upside. You could park there and then walk up to the Sports Museum, which is, there's a roadway that goes along the left side of the mansion. And so it's where we are. You know, right now, well, actually, I've asked, as part of our ongoing community affairs, Bill and Barb, to come and speak to the town board on Tuesday, next Tuesday. Since Monday's the Columbus Day holiday, we don't have a board meeting then. And part of it is because also at that meeting, our engineers will be talking about the 2 grants that we got. If we're able to go and execute on those grants, therefore actually expanding the community center, which is the floor below you, but more importantly also water, you know, and heating, you know, which is what you need as part of it to keep it open all year round, correct? So if we get that, what would you like to do with respect to the museum?
Well, what I'd like to do, we are open April to end of October.
Right.
We have to close because it gets very cold in there. If we could have the heating, that would probably lead to more people wanting to work there.
Right.
Again,
yeah,
I
I
use the word
agree.
work.
Yeah.
That would be a very big plus. I'd like to have the museum open year-round, and I'd like to add maybe a Wednesday or something to that, because there are a lot of organizations that are Monday through Friday.
Right.
They would like to come to the museum, that type of deal. If we had another day, we could do that. Right now, we're a very limited crew, and I think with a little more, once we open this room for the young,
Right.
we have the computers, we have people that know that know the computers, can help the children do the computers. I got a phone call the other day. A lady wanted me to help her son with a paper on baseball. I'm glad to do that. No problem whatsoever. And that's what it's about. It's it's about
exactly.
the community involvement.
So the main way that you are able to continue to operate is through donations, right? Fundraising, which we've talked about, and hopefully the town can help a little bit more in that area. But why don't you tell people, how the funds are used, that people donate, and please donate to the museum.
Okay. What happened was, because of the COVID, we used to make money, our capital that we used to work with, through bowling tournaments, through golf tournaments,
Right.
through 5K races. Because of the COVID, all of this was closed. We couldn't do this. So what happened is our finances went down. We still paid rent, we still paid insurance, we still paid utilities, we had to pay all of that, and we were getting very little income.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what happened there. Hopefully, all these things will occur again,
Yep.
and we'll have that. I
Wouldn't mind seeing a 5K race come back here.
Oh.
Right? We have the hills, that makes it a little bit different, but we have some flat roads, and we have a lot of area. We once had one, right?
At the time, there was Mr. Pete Sanfilippo,
Yep.
who also passed away, was one of our board members. He worked with the races for us for years, and him and one of the racers came out and they did the 5K
Yeah.
around Carnwath.
Yeah,
So it was exactly
exactly.
5K.
Yeah.
And we had the races here, and it worked really well. It was.
So hopefully we can get that back. So why don't we just close up this discussion so we
Sure.
can take it down there. Any closing remarks to our residents and the overall community that's watching this?
Well, I would just want them to come and pay a visit. First of all, they come down to the museum, and then to see the beautiful grounds that the
Right.
museum is in. I think you're really getting 2 things for the price of one.
Absolutely.
You're getting to see the museum, and you're getting to see this Cottonwood
Right.
Farms. The museum, usually a tour that I do, usually lasts 45 minutes. Okay? There's a few stories, and unfortunately, at my age, I played against a lot of the people that are in this museum. Okay? So I can tell a little bit some personal
well, that's
stories.
great.
And, people seem interested in it. And, I think if you go longer than 45 minutes, the people, no matter how,
Right.
they're going to get
Right.
bored by it.
Yeah.
45 minutes, it's fresh, it's crisp, it moves out. So right now we're going to, take a walk down to the museum, let you look and see what's there, and we'll give you a little bit of a clue of what we plan on doing.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you,
We
Nick.
appreciate it. Everyone, please take care. Come on out. And until soon, stay safe and remain well. Thank you. And don't forget Community Day this 4-day weekend, Columbus Day weekend. Thank you very much. Take care.